Welcome, welcome. So glad you're here. My name is Joshua Long. I use he and pronouns, and I am the congregational organizer with Interfaith Power and Light. I'm also here tonight as a parent of two young kids who live in Woodlawn with my wife Tabitha in a house around the corner from 42 acres of land where a developer has proposed to build a 150 megawatt data center. We are gathering tonight to learn, discuss, organize around the issue of hyperscale data center development in Maryland, Virginia, and beyond. On behalf of everyone at Interfaith Power and Light, as well as a dozen community leaders joining us tonight who are organizing on data center issues across the region, we are so grateful you could join us and spend the evening here with us. If you are new to Interfaith Power and Light, or IPL, as many know us by, we are a grassroots organization working with faith communities of all kinds on how we respond to climate change, how we go green, and take action on environmental justice. So first, before we begin, I personally want to give honor to God, who goes by so many names, who is love, and who is the spirit that connects us all together. I'm remembering the unceded land of the Piscataway, as well as my African ancestors who were forced to work the land and build this country. We stand in solidarity with all oppressed peoples here and abroad as we work together to make the world a more loving and just place for all living things. Tonight, we will hear spiritual reflections to ground us, a plenary on what a data center is, why data center development is an environmental justice issue that calls us as people of faith, and what we can do about it right here in our region. We will then move into breakout rooms based on the region or county where you live and worship. And these discussions will be led by our grassroots organizers who are working to make our communities safer and healthier for us all. We as human beings have the real wisdom to decide on the issue of data centers. So there will be a lot of information coming at you this evening. So please take a moment now to open the notes document we've linked in the chat. Joelle has just posted it. Don't rush to scribble things down. Just double click it and then double click on that link to pop it open and bookmark it for future reference. You can keep coming back to it. I want to introduce Ted Eccleston, a volunteer member of Sacred Parks and Waterways in Baltimore City. He's going to offer an opening reflection.
Hey Josh, thank you so much. I appreciate the introduction. It's good to be here with you all. I was drawn into this data center fight because the local creek that I love and visit weekly, called Stony Run, is being threatened by the development of an AI research building that's tied to a data center expansion in another part of Baltimore City. And then in January of this year, they cut down 9 mature red oak trees without public notice. And that's when I knew that I had to do more. So I want to open with a short poem that I wrote about being a parent in this time and choosing to still do things by hand. I think there's a lot of protest poems that I've written about data centers, but this one is a little bit more gentle, and I hope sets us in a right place for tonight. So this is called Washing Your Socks by Hand. Your little socks that I slip one by one over your round and durable feet are piled up on the floor covered with dirt and salt crystals, so I take them to the washroom to clean. There's an automatic machine plugged into the wall in the corner. Next to it, a sink with a sloping, ridged basin, and a choice appears before me. I pause in the doorway with the garments held to my body. The silence while you sleep softens me to say yes to my glad hands. I pick up the first one and hold it for the first time. 15 follow, each one moving across the washboard with soap and running water. When the wet pile of scrubbed socks sits at the top of the sink, I fetch a large glass bowl and fill it with cool, clear water. then transfer the load to soak. I gently massage them like I would your heels, arches, and toes, and watch as the water turns itself gray, collecting all that was caught. I repeat the washing over again, with each one turned inside out, not reluctant, not rushed, not thinking about anything except for your clean feet. Now that the water in the bowl runs clear, I place the pouches on the line outside while I wait for the sun and air to finish the work. I'm truly so grateful to be here tonight alongside so many of you, so many of us who are remembering what our hands can do and staying committed to being human together, to remembering what it means to be human. And the first step in this evening is learning what data centers are and how they operate. So for that, I'm going to hand it off to Quinn.
Thank you for sharing that, Ted. My name is Quinn Larsen. I use they, them pronouns. And I'm serving at Interfaith Power Light this summer through Eastern Mennonite University's Washington Scholar Semester. I've been learning a lot over this term about what data centers are and the threats that they pose to our neighbors and our common home. So data centers have existed for a long time, but today's data centers are much bigger than ever before. As some technology continues to require such massive amounts of computing power, demand for data centers increases. So on your screens, you can see in the early days of computers, a data center might have held just one supercomputer. But now today's hyperscale data centers are massive warehouses with thousands of servers. So this is an image of a modern data center with thousands of servers hosted in a warehouse. So then I want to talk about what data centers are used for, if you can switch the slide. When we upload things to the cloud, it can feel like they just float away into the sky until we need to use them again. But in fact, the cloud is a collection of physical servers. Cloud computing, streaming media, and cryptocurrency are all examples of developments that drive tech companies to build new data centers. So now artificial intelligence, or AI, is demanding even more computing power on top of what we've already seen. Training AI models requires tremendous quantities of data, and corporations are using AI at a huge scale. It should be said that our individual decisions to use ChatGPT or other consumer AI are not the sole drivers of data center demand, just as our personal recycling habits are not the sole cause of the climate crisis. Much of the global tech shift to AI everything is happening outside of our individual control or choice. Even so, if the changes driving hyperscale data center development are not our fault, they are our responsibility in business. As people who care about each other in our common home, we must understand the ways that data centers impose huge burdens on our neighbors, on our energy grid, on our land, and on our water. So if you can switch slides. Data centers use huge amounts of energy and operate 24/7. We're accustomed to talking about energy usage in kilowatt hours, but you can only really describe the scale of data center energy usage in terawatt hours. So for reference, 1 terawatt is equal to 1,000 gigawatts. The entire direct energy usage of the state of New York in a recent year was less than 3 terawatts. But already in 2023, data centers across the United States were using more than 66 times that at 176 terawatt hours. Data centers' huge and perpetual energy demand strains our energy grid and imposes costs on the people who live nearby. A study found that people who live in areas near significant data center activity have monthly energy bills that are 2.5 times that of those who do not. So data centers are keeping us all burning fossil fuels. Because combustion pours heat-trapping climate pollution into our atmosphere, our Earth warms. We need to electrify everything and shift away from burning fossil fuels entirely. But when data centers make massive perpetual demands on the grid, or even when grid operators feel that they have to plan ahead, data center development keeps fossil fuel power plants online and even drives the building of new ones. The graph that you see on your screen depicts the power sources of AI data centers across the country. As you can see, over half of data centers are powered by non-renewable sources like natural gas or coal. This is exactly the opposite of what the climate crisis demands of us. Burning fossil fuels damages the global climate and pollutes the air that we breathe in our communities. Regulating the temperature of data centers involves heating up and polluting millions of gallons of water. If you think about our laptops, through extended use, the fan will go on to regulate temperatures. So you can imagine that in a warehouse full of servers, like a data center, a serious cooling system is needed. Most data centers cool with flowing water. This image shows a typical cooling model for data center servers where cool water flows in, absorbs heat, and then flows out as hot or evaporated water. Through this process, large data centers can consume up to 5 million gallons per day. That's about how much water is used by the population of an entire small city, about the size of Annapolis, Maryland. Data centers put warmed water, often containing chemicals, back into our waterways. We worked with a few camp groups this summer where kids were able to share their questions about proposed data centers. We had them reflect on what questions the birds, trees, rivers, wildlife might ask us if they could. At an EcoSeek camp in Rockville, the river asked, "Can you not put your hot water in me?" Those arguing for building data centers insist that there are better ways to cool with less water pollution, such as closed-loop cooling, which uses the same water repeatedly, or air cooling. You can see a model of this on your screens. Without getting into the details, we are skeptical that these better practices are really being implemented or that they sufficiently address the problem at hand. Even closed-loop cooling requires refilling, which means that water, possibly warmed water, that could have harmful chemicals is being returned to our waterways. Overall, tech companies are racing to build hundreds of hyperscale data centers, even without knowing about the ultimate scale of AI and service demands. They are driven by profit, but we are driven by something else, our ancient sacred traditions, real human wisdom, about living well in community and caring for each other, the land, and the water that we share. More and more people here and across the country are deciding that the ways data centers devour our energy and water are unsustainable and that the harm on our local environments and communities are unacceptable. Making wise-hearted decisions about data centers will require us to slow down and ensure that the human beings most impacted by data center development are informing these conversations. In all of our work, we strive to follow the lead of the most impacted communities. This is a sacred practice of environmental justice. So to talk more about that, I'm going to pass things off to my colleague, Robin Lewis.
Greetings, everyone. I hope you all are having a good evening. My name is Robin Lewis. I am the director for climate equity with Interfaith Power and Light. I'm also the social justice director for my church, which is Beloved Community Church, United Church of Christ in Prince George's County, where environmental justice has become an important part of my ministry and of the community work that I do and that my church does. So right now, one of the most urgent issues that we're facing is, of course, data center development. In our area, meaning in Prince George's County, which is the area that I live in, we're looking at 1, 2, maybe even 3 or more proposals. Honestly, we're not always sure how many there are or where they may be. So uncertainty is also a part of the problem. For more than a year, I've been deeply concerned about what data center means to our communities, not just economically, but for our air, water, land, energy systems, health, food systems, quality of life, just about every aspect of our lives. For me, this is clearly an environmental justice issue and a faith issue. As people of faith, we are called for creation, or called to care for creation, and also love our neighbors, as well as stand with communities that are often carrying more than their share of environmental burdens. So communities that we typically say are overburdened and underserved. Tonight, I want us to look at data center development through an environmental justice lens and talk about the important role faith communities can play. This isn't simply about being for or against technology or development. It's about asking, what does responsible and equitable development look like? And who gets to have a voice in those decisions? And I believe the faith community needs to be a part of that discussion. So let's talk about environmental justice. For those of you who don't know, I've been working in environmental justice space for over 15 years. And the first thing I do is start off with a simple definition. Now, there are many definitions because this is a very extensive area of study. But this is a simple definition that Majora Carter from New York, she worked in Harlem and helped develop urban planning in Harlem. She came up with this definition. Environmental justice means that no community should be saddled with more environmental burdens and less environmental benefits than any other. Of course, that definition can be expanded, but simply put, no community should be overburdened with environmental injustices and underburdened or underserved with help to make their environment better. Next slide. So again, let's start back in the beginning. The history of environmental justice started with the church. So when Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King planned the march in 1968 and was assassinated, the Black Sanitation Workers March went on. That really kicked off this movement at that time at Claiborne Temple, AME in Memphis, that served as the ground zero for the civil rights events. In 1987, the report Toxic Waste and Race, which was commissioned by the United Church of Christ, Charles Lee and others were involved with that report, came up with an analysis that looked at where toxic waste was placed in the United States. And what they found was race was the predominant indicator or variable that determined where toxic waste was placed. That same study was done 20 years later, and the same results occurred. So that got the ball rolling. We got some information. We already knew this. The communities that were burdened already knew this, but we needed data and we needed information. So that was done, and it was done again. Next slide. So the environmental justice movement really began because of racism. And as I just said, where things were placed in communities that were Black, brown, and poor. They were just dumped in those communities without community consent. So it was a systemic discriminatory environmental practice that occurred over and over again and still does to this day. It's morphed into all kinds of aspects of not just the natural environment, but also the built environment. So it is expanded, and we can see that in various aspects of our lives with regard to justice. So due to data center development, which is different, there are some areas that are affluent, such as Loudoun and Fairfax, and they are now experiencing these environmental injustices, meaning they're suffering now. Now, the reason that data centers were put there and why the data center development occurred there is another story. But what I will say is today, those people in the communities that are affluent are also out there protesting and complaining about the environmental impacts of data centers. So we're all in this together. That's the point. Okay. However, we see that the discriminatory practice of placing environmental injustices and placing things that are toxic are much more prevalent and have always been in Black, brown, and low-income communities. So environmental justice is based on a principle that all people have the right to environmental benefits. Again, please go and look up the principles of environmental justice. There are 17 principles that were written in 1991 at the first People of Color Environmental Leadership Summit. Was excellently written because they're still applicable. There's 17. Please understand those. And some of the principles are about self-determination and not having to live in an environment that is toxic. So I encourage you to look at those principles. You can Google them. You know, they come right up. Next slide. Next slide. Thanks. So with all of that said and that background, which was very quick because there's much more to it than that, environmental justice issues are impacted by data centers. And understand that environmental justice issues all lead to health disparities. So when you think about environmental injustice and things that are going on and toxic waste and all of things like that, the reason it's so important for us is because it leads to health disparities and other issues such as asthma, such as COPD, such as all kinds of cancer. There's all kinds of issues living in an environmental area, in an area that it has a lot of environmental toxins. So as I stated here, you can see air pollution, data centers. And we're going to get into this. And as Quinn mentioned earlier, data centers pollute. There's no way around this. Okay, they put out pollutants. Industrial sites, again, toxic exposure, water safety. When mentioned the water, not only does it use water, it has discharge water, either by discharging it into the air or discharging it back into our waterways. Energy access. We all are facing high energy bills as a result of data centers using more and more energy and the cost of infrastructure going up and being distributed to us, the consumer. Healthy homes. If you live near one, you know what I mean. There's so many aspects of data centers that we are concerned with. Food systems. We haven't really talked a lot about food systems, but guess what? Food systems need water, and we need fresh water for our food. So data centers affect food, transit, green space, green jobs, and of course, climate resilience. So all of these things and more, I can go on and on, are impacted by data centers, the development of these data centers in communities very close to where we live. Next slide. So what are environmental justice issues with data center development? I mentioned a few. I said energy demands. Of course, more and more energy is needed. That means the energy that's needed by the data centers are going to take away from the energy that we use. So they run 24/7. So if there's a demand on the grid, of course, they're running on the grid too. And they demand so much energy that, you know, there's a possibility that we can experience some disruptions if they're allowed to run 24/7 and max out the grid. Energy burden. Of course, we talked about energy burden. And this burden is especially important for folks who are on fixed incomes, low incomes, and just anybody who manages their budget. If rates keep going up, or energy rates keep going up, not because we're using more energy, but because the energy demand from these huge hyperscale data centers is so high that the cost of infrastructure is being distributed to us, that is a burden that we shouldn't bear. So that is injustice, because if you're demanding more energy, as data centers are, they should pay for it, not everybody else. So that is a problem, and we all are aware of that. If you aren't, you probably see it somehow or another in your bill. Most of us do. Water usage, very concerned with water usage, not just, the water that we need, our drinking water, but groundwater contamination. Where does the discharge go? Will it be contained? Even if it's in vapors, that's still emitting into the air and it still ends up in our water system. So water is critical, and it's a huge issue around data centers. Zoning and siting, this is definitely an issue, placing them next to people who live within 100 feet, 300 feet, even 500 feet. Data centers make noise. Data centers use backup generators, which are diesel backup generators, which pollute. There's so many issues with siting and placing them in communities, especially in Black, brown, low-income communities, right next to apartment buildings and people's homes. This is a major issue, and I'm in Prince George's County, so we're definitely fighting that issue, and so many of you are across the state as well as Virginia and possibly DC. We'll see, but we're all fighting. Cumulative impacts. That's a big issue, because in the county, in Prince George's County, I'll speak to, as well as Baltimore and a lot of other areas, there are sacrifice zones. And these zones are areas or communities where people live, and they're exposed to toxins cumulatively, meaning there could be a power plant, a gas-fired power plant, there could be surface mining, there could be coal ash dumping, there could be underground storage tanks, there could be other kind of Superfund sites. I can name a few communities in Prince George's County, as well as Baltimore, as well as all over the state, but those two areas are really, really flooded with sacrifice zones. So cumulative impacts occur when you add more to an already existing problem. So that area has all of these toxic impacts, and you're going to add a data center with its toxic waste and toxic fumes and all the other things that come along with a data center. So we really do need to talk about cumulative impacts, because that's important. Again, pollution, air, water, noise, ecosystem. I mentioned to someone, it's not just about us as humans. It's also about creation, about the birds, the animals, the insects. They're disturbed by this. They're not only disturbed by what we're doing in the air and in the water, but noise affects them more, because a lot of animals are more sensitive to noise than we are. So we have to think about this from a holistic perspective and from a creation care perspective. It is our responsibility as faith leaders, believers, whatever you believe, it's all about creation. It's all about helping your neighbor and helping each other. And we have to help the least of these. And sometimes that is not humans, that's animals and other creatures. Next slide, please. So the problem that we have with this challenge is that it's various levels that we have to muddle through. We have to muddle through regulations on the county or city level, sometimes the county, sometimes the city, county, state, and federal. So we have all these regulatory issues that we have to deal with that are with different jurisdictions. So many of you that are on this call know what I'm talking about. I mean, you're fighting, zoning text amendments, and you're looking at state utilities and PSC, and you're looking at FERC. And I mean, all of these different levels have to be tackled and coordinated to get a proper result. So that's the challenge of regulation. Next slide, please. So what we're doing here, Interfaith Power Light DMV, we're trying to amplify the voices of the community. We're encouraging people to testify at hearings. I heard someone mention that someone drove all the way out from Baltimore to be out in Charles County. We're trying to be everywhere, as many places as we can, to testify, to be there to support you in your community when you have a hearing. If we can't do it, we'll try to find somebody who can. We're getting green leaders and other faith leaders to do presentations at their congregation and their ministry. We held last year Data Center Lobby Day. We're going to do that again. We worked with Nature Forward to do, we went on data center bus tours, training. We're trying to do everything. Coalitions I'm on. I don't even know how many coalitions I'm on. Okay. So, and we send out alerts to faith leaders. We're doing op-eds, whatever we can. One of our biggest campaigns is a Real Wisdom photo petition. And you will see along the way photos that we've taken with many of you holding a sign showing real wisdom versus AI, or only we should decide. Next slide, please. So nationwide, and this is by no means all of the states that's fighting and that's standing up against corporate data center developers. But there's a lot of movement and there's a lot of issues that are environmental justice. I'll just talk about just briefly two. And if I'm talking too long, please let me know, because this is passion. I'm passionate about this. So in Memphis, there's an AI data center there that was just plopped in the middle of next to a Black community without anyone knowing. There are so many activists there that are fighting and trying to figure out what to do. And it's unfortunate because it was after the fact. So we have an advantage in Maryland and some in Virginia, although Virginia already has 600 plus data centers. We have an advantage of trying to get it before it's built. Unfortunately, they didn't. So they are now trying to figure out how to handle the water issue, how to handle the pollution, because they are using diesel backup batteries, which is polluting the air even more for that Black community in Memphis. This is going on also in Cancer Alley, which is in Mississippi, Louisiana. And these are all predominantly sacrifice zones, the areas where Black and brown, there are low-income folks there. And that was where they thought was going to be the path of least resistance, but people are standing up and yelling. And that is good, because we need to stand up and unite on these issues. We can't let these corporate developers do that to the least of these. So that's, next slide. So my colleague, Joshua Long, wrote an op-ed in the Banner, which was really wonderful. You all should read it. You can pull it right up, but I'm going to use one of his quotes. It says, "It isn't AI that is deciding to place data centers in overburdened Black and brown communities. It is people who hope to profit. It is people who probably live in other neighborhoods and who wouldn't want this infrastructure located where they or their children live." And that says it all. This is about people. This is where we live. This is where our children live. And we need to have control. And environmental justice says that we should have control. The community should have control over what goes in their community and should be self-sufficient, self-sustaining, and also self-determinant. So thank you, Josh, for your writing. Next slide. Communities, what can you do? A lot. You could join grassroots organizations. That's why we have grassroots folk leaders on this call. They're going to help us through the breakout session because we need to partner with each other. Host webinars and educational forums. We need to educate more people. Encourage members to join these advocacy events in their community. Encourage faith leaders to testify. If you don't, we will encourage you. If we know you, believe me, we'll reach out. Lift up communities in the worship service. Lift these issues up so that people understand that this is about creation care. This is about justice. This is about the environment in which we all live. Use AI with real wisdom yourself. When you do use AI, use it with real wisdom and deliberately. And check out our website, IPL-DMV.org/real wisdom as a resource. Next slide. I think I'm over, so I'm going to go quick. Bringing real wisdom. We must bring real wisdom to the building of data centers in our community. While this AI boom is going on, every community has grassroots power. That's what it's all about, our power to weigh in on how land, water, energy is used. So please, please, please get involved. Use your real wisdom to determine what should go in your community. Next slide. Last slide. Bringing real wisdom from the people most impacted to the decisions about data centers in our community. And let those who are wise-hearted build as you have instructed. That is our campaign. And I am going to turn this over to my colleague who is going to continue this. Andrea Orozco will take it from here.
Yeah, thank you so
Got it,
much.
Andrea.
Thank you so much, Robin. I really appreciate you centering this fight in our commitment to environmental justice and fighting for environmental justice. Like Robin mentioned, my name is Andrea Orozco. I am the Faithful Advocacy Lead here at Interfaith Power Light, DMV. And we'll be talking about how communities are organizing around these data center issues, both taking a quick look at our regional, at our region, and then taking a little bit of a nationwide scope. So Ethan, please, next slide, please. Great. So I'll be honest with you, the corporate drive to build data centers is fueled by a lot of money and a lot of influence. We know this because there are 600 data centers already operating in Virginia, and our neighbors in a dozen more Maryland and Northern Virginia counties are facing proposals to build and or expand data centers in the places that they live and worship in. These tech companies are coordinating with our local officials, and like people mentioned in the chat, this is often in secret and behind non-disclosure agreements, and they're confusing people with misleading ads. We know that they're feeling this pressure because they're responding by suing to keep data center referendums off the ballot, like in Frederick, hiring paid counter protesters and matching orange shirts in Prince George's, and paying a pastor from New Jersey to create the impression of a local interfaith pro data center group, all to try and make us believe that the rise of artificial intelligence is inevitable and that we are powerless to stop it. But I'm a grassroots organizer who cut my teeth in the Texas legislature, and then I'm lobbying in Congress. So here's what I want you to know tonight. When we organize, our communities are powerful too, powerful enough to slow or stop data center development from barreling into our neighborhoods and laying claim to the water, air, or energy that we share. Any facility that wants to be built on the ground in our communities requires approval of local officials and agencies who are accountable to us. So every data center proposal offers our congregations and communities the opportunity to speak out and to say no, or only if. And I wanted to share just one story about how our faith community showed up in Baltimore County in May, when we heard that the planning board was only going to hold one public hearing before issuing its data center report. We heard this and we started mobilizing. We did what we did best. Robin highlighted Josh's op-ed, but I'll raise it here again. He's a resident in Baltimore County and lives near the proposed data center in Woodlawn. And so we really turned to our trusted partners and faith leaders in the county, quickly put together a call to let other neighbors know that this hearing was even happening, and put together information on how people can participate. That day was actually, I think, pouring rain, and we still rallied outside of this building as members of the council filed in. And when people show up, these elected officials really take notice. At the end of the day, when this was all said and done, that initial report that the county commission issued included so many quotes from our faith leaders and community leaders who had shown up that day, while they were really scrounging to put together like pro data center voices in this report. And here I have a couple of photos, of course, of the op-ed and some of the quotes, but then also the rally outside. You can see that people are under the roof there, the little thatch. And then different leaders from different faiths that are speaking out, like at this county hearing. But yes, next slide, please. So the grassroots pushback against data center development is ferocious. And in Maryland, zooming in a little bit, or zooming out, I suppose, in Maryland, we're seeing really like the fruits of this labor like come together. In Baltimore County, there's that 1-year moratorium and the data center study with talks of expanding expanding it to beyond just 1 year. In Montgomery County, some of the elected officials who were running for county executive were trying to outrun each other on this issue, offering 6 or 18-month moratoriums. And I have just a couple of examples here, but keeping an eye on the clock, I'm gonna keep us moving along. Next slide, please. And yeah, so as you can see here, also in Maryland, in more counties than not, we're seeing moratoriums. In one county, we were even seeing a ban. So we'll really dig deep in our breakout groups about what we can learn from each other, and how we can achieve also a statewide moratorium. But I also just want to highlight that what we're doing tonight is building a movement that is bigger than just this region, nationally. And can I get the next slide, please? Nationally, we saw 24 proposed data centers that were scrapped due to public opposition. That was 4 times higher than 2023 or 2024, I believe. And in 2026 so far, we're only halfway through this year. We're seeing over 75 proposed data centers slowing down or completely being scrapped. So we're really seeing how our communities are showing up across the country and really putting a stop to some of these proposals. And we know that when communities organize, we really can stop these centers. There's been a moratorium legislation introduced in Congress, and our friend Miralay Goldsmith is going to be organizing some opportunities for those of us who are interested to lobby Maryland Senate offices about this issue later this month. And please remember, I really want to leave you with this thought, and to please remember that together we are powerful. There's so much pressure to just let AI do everything for us now. And so many voices trying to tell us that massive data center development in our communities is inevitable, and there's nothing we can do to stop it. But that's not true. It's not inevitable. And we're seeing everywhere that committed organizing, caring neighbors can slow or stop data center proposals. We're going to meet in place-based breakout groups to build solidarity, and then come back together and take some action together. But before that, it's time for a stretch.
Yay! Thank you, Andrea, for reminding us of our collective power. I'm Joelle Novey, she, her pronouns with Interfaith Power and Light, and I get to invite all of us, to stretch our amazing bodies for a few minutes before the second part of tonight's program. Is everyone ready? So let's remember that you are not a computer or a robot or an algorithm. You are a human being with a body, and so am I. What a wondrous and beautiful thing. What is it like to be you in your body right now? What would feel good right now as we open our hearts to join together for learning and action? Some water, a snack. You can do all these things while I'm talking. A particular stretch, a run to the bathroom. Go for it. Because we're beings with bodies, we breathe and our breath connects us. Let's take 3 deep breaths together, and I'll use my hands to keep us in sync. Ready? And because we are beings with bodies mostly made of water, we rely on clean water, as do many other neighbors and creatures and plants. Let's, I have to adjust my camera so you can see me. Let's stand up if you are able. And let's reach our hands up to the sky and bring down rain onto our faces. Bring down rain. Bring renewal into our hearts again and again. Reach up to the sky, the heavens, and bring down water. And we are beings who have soil beneath our feet, even if it's below where we are standing or sitting right now. We come from earth, we return to earth. Let's root down into the wisdom of those who came before us, and then let's use our feet to stomp out injustice. Let's stomp with one foot and then the other, and again. And I'm going to return to my seat. Let's return to our chairs now. Let's roll back our shoulders and hold ourselves in our full dignity and power. And I invite you to shake out your hands. These hands aren't just for keyboards. They aren't just for swiping or phone typing with one thumb. These hands are for connecting. They're for pushing and pulling towards justice. They are for doing the work of the heart.
Hey everybody, my name is Anjali Gulati. I am with Interfaith Power and Light based in Baltimore City, and I have had a great conversation just now with neighbors both from Harford County, where I grew up, that passed a ban, and Baltimore City, where I live now, that's trying to get a ban. And connecting with folks in my area to build grassroots power together, learning about how, organizing in faith communities and just over food and music and conversation and humanity, um, is how we can actually make meaningful change before we accept the not inevitable build out of data centers. The grassroots leaders from each group, can also think about one thing, one way that the folks in your group talked about taking action, and we can keep it spicy and brief. Um, so while everyone is just putting kind of one thing they learned, I want to or invite Ted from Baltimore City, and then Bryan from Harford County, um, to share one thing, one way.
I can go first. Thanks, Anjali. I really think that what's really important to remember is that any kind of efforts that are being done to kick the can down the road or to create some sort of moratorium seems to feel a lot like a cover for just allowing permission for this to become inevitable. And so I think that, pushing for things like bans, shooting like really high for that, and hopefully a statewide ban would be an amazing achievement. But I think that that really feels appropriate to say that like the political structures, the systems we have in place as they are not sufficient enough to like allow us to just put the guardrails on it. I really love Bryan's little analogy about the kid and like your child in your home who really wants to get a pet snake, and then you ask them to write a report about why having a pet snake in the house would be great and how you would take care of it and how you would feed it and all that. And it's just like you basically open the door for like permission, and that is not what we're here to do. We really want to protect ourselves and our communities from these really negative impacts, not only of the physical infrastructure, but of you know, the potential harm that AI could do, given that it would be powered by data centers of this size.
Yeah, so I'll just say a couple things real quick. The model that worked for us was we connected and we got organized and then we got involved. I think that it's very powerful to create really cool like connecting events. We just did like simple cookouts at my house, my little farm, and had neighbors come and it was so powerful to see neighbors that that got on each other's nerves for years for mowing too early or late, whatever, you know what I mean, hanging out and shaking hands, and neighbors who have lived next to each other for 30 some years that have never actually had conversations. It was cool to see that. And then we got organized and then we got involved by going to the meetings. There's many ways to get involved, many different meetings, showing up, showing unity and our color that we all wore green, we wore our logos. It just kind of like showed everybody who we're a part of and what we believe in. I actually think that our logo could be powerful for the whole state, our land, our home, our Maryland. I think it says a lot. But anyways, that's another conversation. But one thing, like tangible thing that I've done, and I would encourage other people to do is take a look at what seats are in the county at your local government, and it might they might need to be filled by you. I've recently applied for a seat on the planning and zoning board, just to, things get pushed by that and through that office. Uh, that we need to be the ones sitting there seeing it and making the community aware long before they're getting approved. So, maybe some of us need to run for county council or county executive. I mean, that's one way that we can have an impact in our communities.
Thank you. Okay, I'll invite other grassroots leaders. What's one way that your group talked about taking action? Try to keep it under a minute if possible. Let's go to Mary from Baltimore County.
I just want to let you know that I have been watching Harford County and Bryan's group. So I reached out to him, and that's how we started our sister group here in Baltimore County. One second. And what we're doing is we are actually attending meetings. We are sending emails. We have a petition. We're reaching out to community associations and just trying to spread the word and get people involved. And that's really what we're doing right now. But a couple of us are paying very close attention to what's going on at our county council meetings. And I also agree with Bryan. You can volunteer, because it really is a volunteer position, on your local county council planning board or your zoning board or anything like that. It's a way of getting your voice inside your community government. So,
Thank you, Mary.
yep. I would like to actually encourage everybody. Everybody's welcome in our grassroots group. It's just a Facebook group, but it's called Our Land, Our Home, Our Baltimore County. So please find us on Facebook, and everybody's welcome.
Thank you so much. Melissa from Calvert County, and then some folks in St. Mary's were also in the breakout. Y'all just coming hot off a victory, and you've done a lot of that. So tell us one way your group talked about taking action.
Thank you. We had a small but mighty breakout group. Charity and I chatted, and one thing that we kind of kept coming back to is that part of kind of letting real wisdom decide is having that wisdom. And many people in our communities are still getting caught up on these issues, don't have good information. So to the extent we can keep learning and sharing good information out to the communities, we should do that. Also in Calvert, August 18th, our Board of County Commissioners is going to be deciding, hopefully, on a moratorium for us. So if you can support us with that, we would greatly appreciate that. The action item is to sign the petition. I've put it into the chat. We're trying to drive up signatures and comments on that. It will all be part of the public record. And let's hope that we can get things paused in Calvert for real. Thanks, everybody.
Yes. Thank you, Melissa. Yeah, everyone go ahead and sign that petition while it's there in the chat. Okay, Jackie Moore, Charles County, I've seen you there a few times. You've shared so much helpful information with us, and we joked you have a PhD in data center. So what's one way your group talked about taking action?
Yes, an unwanted, undesired PhD in data centers, but here it is. So we learned in our breakout group that we definitely need to do a better job of getting information out because the people who live in the area right near the Morgantown data center think it's all a done deal and think that they're done, they're defeated, giving up. So there's work to be done. There are several different coalitions within Charles County, and so trying to find a way that these coalitions can look past personalities and work together towards a common goal is important. And then we also talked about information sharing, like Melissa was saying, and putting the pressure on the commissioners and the planning commission, and as well as our state delegate folks and state senator, but also pushing off any talk of a task force, moratorium, ban, any of those decisions until the next group of county commissioners have been seated, because they're the ones who are going to be in for the long haul. So trying to let the current group get away with doing all the stuff and then they go on their merry way if they don't win their seat back. And some of them, we already know they're not going to be back. We're not going to be able to hold them accountable for their decisions. So we've got to press on that.
Thank you. Now I'm going to turn it over to Elizabeth from Frederick. What is one way that your group talked about taking action? I know there's been a lot of action in Frederick with the ballot, the signatures.
The one thing that I would say, we didn't necessarily go into depth about this, but stay engaged, stay informed, watch what's going on. Part of the problem with the data center in Adamstown, a lot of the Adamstown community had not been paying attention to what was going on in their own backyard. And suddenly there was the data center diesel generators were coming in, and a couple of the community members all of a sudden realized, oh no, these are coming in our backyard. How long has this been going on? And they're all in it now. But my message would be follow what's going on in your planning commission, because that's where it all starts. The applications go in there, and if it's not by right, if you have to have the council or your board of county commissioners or whatever involved in the decision-making process, I would encourage everybody to stay engaged, follow what's going on your planning commission meeting agendas, follow what's going on your county council or your board of county commissioners meeting agendas, and share that. However you can share it, it's so important. And make sure you're staying on top of accurate information. So go to the right source for the information that you need, because this misinformation creates such a problem. It's a waste of time, it's a waste of energy, and it's, quite frankly, it's very difficult to get past the miscommunication. So that would be my advice. And I think speak out. Don't ever be afraid to get up and speak at a meeting, at a planning commission meeting, or governmental meeting, council or BOCC, whatever it is. Speak up, because your voice is important. Your voice matters.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth.
You're welcome.
Now I want to turn it over to Liz. Hey, Liz, what's one way that the Howard and Anne Arundel group discussed about how to take action?
Well, we had a Anne Arundel person, and we just found out today that the legislation was introduced for Anne Arundel. And so we gave some recommendations on, forming the task force, what to look out for, how you can, maybe check the bill to make sure it's going to. We learned so much from PG County and other counties about having, what the task force should do and shouldn't do, or not rely on it to do what you want it to do, that it has to be explicitly stated what the task force is tasked with studying. So that something it helped us get our bill a little bit stronger than it looked like at first in Howard County. And then also partner with the Interfaith Partners of the Chesapeake, and maybe ACT for Anne Arundel, because those are existing groups that, can tie into.
Thank you. Thank you, Liz. Now I want to invite to share what the Montgomery County group shared about taking action.
I can go and represent Montgomery
Yeah, go ahead.
County.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of our conversation with some great questions, from many folks in our group, was really just staying involved, and keeping up to date, with all the actions, by the council. Just a few weeks ago, the council passed an 18-month moratorium. And so now we're in a place where it's about figuring out what that 18-month period looks like. And so, community involvement, community engagement, is going to be central to that. And so, our message coming out of our breakout group is really to stay involved, to stay informed through action alerts here at IPL-DMV, through the Montgomery County Climate Coalition, who have done an incredible job at keeping everyone up to date with all updates and events going on, as well as, of course, advocating for the moratorium and for this legislation, as well as Food and Water Watch, who has done a fantastic job as part of the coalition as well.
Thank you so much, Ethan. Now I know we had a significant Northern Virginia group on. Please, Dr. Faith, from Virginia Interfaith Power and Light, thank you for joining us. How can Virginians, take action?
I think what we focused on mainly was the keeping informed, countering disinformation, and recognizing some of the realities of some of the need for more granular kind of level understanding of what are the acceptable what's acceptable to health for human health, and for even the ecological health, for noise pollution, for the water, for air. That's one way that we can drive regulation, and to create kind of a momentum at the state level. One of the things that we recognized is that the way that regulations and way that these data centers are being cited is kind of a whack-a-mole situation where every county has the right, kind of makes its own decisions. And I think that's also true in Maryland, but there's no real apparatus that can actually impact the decisions that are being made in these local communities. And so that's one area that we have a need for, and so that we need to kind of dig into the details a little bit more, stay focused, stay informed, and actually attend these meetings, the town halls, the commission meetings, as well as any of the kind of meetings in our own local communities where these issues are being discussed, so that we can, first of all, really know what's happening, and then from there be able to take the kind of action that really will lead to more stringent strategic legislation and regulation to actually protect the community from some of the more egregious ways that data centers are coming to our communities. The secrecy, the usage of water, the usage of energy, and all of that actually ending, ending up becoming, we end up paying for all of that. So I think that was the main action is staying informed, countering disinformation, and attending and being present at these opportunities for town halls and planning commissions and these meetings.
Thank you so much, Dr. Faith. I want to go now to Sela from Prince George's County about, a way that your group discussed taking action.
Thank you. It's really exciting to hear everybody's report backs. I wanted to uplift two things. First, Minister Joyce had an amazing quote talking about our politicians, how their mouths don't match their feet, which made me chuckle and is just really accurate. And so I feel like we need to hold their feet to the fire, and that's what the No Landover Data Center Group with a lot of our partners has been doing for the past year. And I think what that means is that beyond testifying at hearings and sending emails, we need to hold more rallies, have more marches, disrupt more meetings, and kind of learn from history at what tactics actually deliver justice and lasting social change. And so our organizations are committed to doing that in the county, in Prince George's County. And the second thing I wanted to lift up was one of the other attendees, I'm forgetting their name, apologies, but they asked about some of the global impacts of artificial intelligence and hyperscale data centers and some of its ties to the military industrial complex here, which is not only murdering innocent people, children across the globe, but is a leading source of greenhouse gas emissions on the planet. And so beyond those environmental impacts, AI is increasingly being used by violent and racist institutions here at home too. And so we can look at ICE. They are making $100 million contracts with AI to more effectively and efficiently terrorize and kidnap our neighbors and murder people who stand up to defend them, and detain people in inhumane conditions. And the same thing is happening in our communities with these overfunded police agencies, which are surveilling us, criminalizing our youth, and again, like murdering us. And so just wanted to make a call for us to think about, again, like, do we even need artificial intelligence in the way that our government and that big tech tells us? Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was a powerful way to, close out the sharing from this breakout group session. And I'm really glad we got to talk to some of our neighbors. Maybe we met someone new today through the breakout and thought about new ways to connect. So I'm going to put in the chat other ways to connect, and I'm going to invite Joelle to share our call to action.
I'm actually going to have you get started before I even start talking. So I put we're going to ask everyone to take action before you leave tonight. If you live in Maryland, you can click on the first link. And if you live anywhere else, including Virginia and DC, you can click on the second link. Both involve a concrete way to speak out and take action tonight. And I'm going to ask everyone to double click now and get started. Thank you so much, Anjali. It was so energizing, and I'm so grateful to all of the local leaders who just shared with us. It was so energizing to me to hear about the ways folks are doing so much fierce and sacred work as protectors. We've shared a few times this quotation from the Hebrew Bible about how only wise-hearted people get to build the tabernacle. And I'm Jewish, and my family prays at Minyan Segula of Shepherd Park in Silver Spring. And my great-grandparents all spoke Yiddish as their first language. And in Yiddish translations of the Torah, the Hebrew Bible, this word wise-hearted in that sentence in Exodus is not two words with a dash. It is translated as just one long German-sounding adjective, klugherzig, and that would make wise-heartedness, the noun, an even longer word, klugherzigkeit. We have talked tonight about the urgent need to insist that klugherzigkeit, wise-heartedness, guide conversations about AI and about building data centers. And we also know that wise-heartedness can only come into this moment through real people like us. People with great-grandparents, people with family stories of rootedness and migration, people with a stake in the future. Corporations and artificial intelligence can be smart in some ways, but they cannot be wise. Only people can have wise hearts because only people can love and experience our interdependence and make decisions with awareness of the sacred web of existence of which we are a part. How could a technology that does not breathe drive decisions about polluting our air? How could a machine that does not eat food, that has never tasted a carrot grown in the earth, drive decisions about whether our water will stay clean? How could corporate interests who measure profits on a quarterly basis make decisions for us about permanently damaging the climate on the only planet we have when those profit models don't love even one waddling toddler, when they haven't lifted and spun even one little child who will have to live in the future we are shaping now? The grassroots movement against data centers' harms is growing rapidly and gaining strength, as it was so clearly demonstrated tonight. And this movement needs our faith communities. This movement needs you, because our congregations are not in the tech business, but we are very much in the wise heart business. All of us, all of our sacred traditions are expert cultivators of Klugherzigkeit, though we may call it by other names. I invite you to remember what you know, what your traditions and your community already knows about how to cultivate wise-heartedness. We know that wise hearts listen. AI can regurgitate things, but only our wise hearts can listen. We did some good listening tonight, and let's keep listening. Get connected to groups and leaders and efforts that will keep all of us continue to listen and learn about how data centers are impacting all of us. And that agenda and resources doc will continue to be a source of those connections. And wise hearts know when to slow down. All of our spiritual practices, the discipline of making time for ritual and meditation and prayer, all of it is about understanding that people can't make good decisions while moving at top speed. Unlike data centers, we cannot chug on full power day and night, 24/7. We need to pause for Sabbath. We need to stop and breathe. We need to sit and sing and bless, and we need to move gently enough to discern what the still small voice of the Spirit is trying to say in our lives. It is becoming clear to so many people here and across the country that we must slow down the obscene imposition of hyperscale data centers on our communities, on our land, and on our water. As the philosopher Bayo Akomolafe teaches, the times are urgent. Let's slow down. In Maryland, we want to move away from piecemeal postponements in a few counties to a statewide legislative moratorium on new data centers in the 2027 legislative session. Please click that link for everyone here who lives or worships in Maryland to call on your state legislators, as well as there's a bulletin insert if you want to bring the same call to action about state legislation to your congregation. In Virginia and beyond, we must join the growing chorus calling on our Congress people to pay attention to how data centers are impacting their constituents and to slow down the data center building spree nationwide. So everyone, if you haven't yet, take a moment to double click on those two links and take action. And please share an emoji or a reaction emoji or emoji in the chat. That'll be how we know that you took action with us and signed up on one of those links. And my colleague Josh will close us out.
Thank you, Joelle. And I just filled out mine to go to my elected leaders in Baltimore County. So let's just take a collective breath. There was so much we heard, so much discussion, and a lot of us even organized. We're planning. We're thinking about actions we're going to take, actions we're taking now. But just take a moment to let that sink in. We are so grateful that you joined us tonight. We will be sending out a follow-up email with a survey so we can get some feedback on our webinar and moving forward, as well as bulletin inserts for you to share with your congregations. We're going to be keeping this campaign going through the range of the year, and we want more faith communities, more congregations to be involved. And we will continue to organize and come together so we can protect our communities and use our real wisdom to decide about the future we wish to live into. So lastly, many of you know I'm a musician and a lover of music. I wanted to be sharing music throughout. We're going to share a closing song. The first song you heard was called Till It's Done by the late great D'Angelo. The song before the breakouts and that when we came back was called Our Power by Rena Branson. And the closing song is called Making Do by Lake Street Dive. All three of these artists channel their social justice work through the music that they've made. When it comes to creating change in our world, you don't need to switch up your entire life or become someone you are not. You just have to start right where you are, in your city, in your community, and your congregation. As we go from this place and back to our busy lives, may we leave with an understanding of the weight of the issue, but with a renewed hope in the human spirit. May we continue to work for environmental justice and ensure that our society puts people over profits and our children over gain. May it be so. Amen.